Well, yeah, this is a good sign, right? Yeah, getting greasy. So, she's up on stands again. Christmas came early, so to speak. Yeah, it's gear oil, and it had some nastiness in it, so no telling what I'll find when I pull this diff. But so I got my TrueTrac in, and I got my Yukon aluminum diff housing, and I got my 350 gears in, REM polished, so I don't have to do any break-in goodness. And I'm waiting on pinion bearings because the case I ordered was like a kit, and it came with the case bearings, and for whatever reason I thought it had everything in it because it had a bunch. I had all the bolts and everything along with it as well. Didn't have the pinion bearings. I'm not sure why. I guess because oh no, it came with the Daytona front support, whatever, pinion support. So I don't know why it wouldn't have come with the bearings too, or why they wouldn't have made the kit with that. But anyways, so I'm in the process, or I say I'm in the process, I'm waiting on the bearings right now, and I'm also waiting on a pair of snap ring pliers because my little cheap AutoZone or auto parts store ones that I have, well, they won't cut it because the aluminum case has an internal snap ring for the pinion support bearing, and the snap ring is about the size of this freaking thing. So my little cheapy snap ring pliers aren't cutting it. They keep slipping off. I can't get them to grab. So I ordered a good set of channel lock ones off Amazon that'll show up tomorrow, I think. So I'll be able to get that part of it installed. I could put the carrier bearings on the diff, but I can't install my ring gear yet because one, I don't have the thread pitch of the bolts that are long enough to pull it on to the diff with the bolts, and the bolts that mount it aren't long enough. The machine face is too tight for it to slip down enough for the threads to engage. So what I did was ordered a 1 foot piece of all thread and thread pattern. I'm gonna cut that into lengths, into 3 pieces about 3 inch long. And then I am gonna use that as a guide, and I'll heat up the ring gear to 250, 275 degrees. And before anybody jumps to yelling about tempering and whatnot, the reason you only go to that amount is because you don't want to hit 300 because it starts to mess with the temper. Watched a couple videos, and one of the guys that assembles these diffs does this for his ring gear installation. He does it for his bearing installation, and they literally just slide right on. So I'm going to do that method. That stuff won't show till Monday, along with the pinion bearings. So I figured I'd go ahead and start pulling this, because if you remember, that filler cap right there has to come off for my sway bar to mount. So I'm dropping the diff so I can go ahead and chop that off, weld a plate over the hole, coat it, and have it ready, and go ahead and have this diff pulled so it's ready. I don't know if anyone remembers, but I had the fun experience of fighting to get these axle bolts. See one right there. Normally you have an axis hole on these axles sometimes, or normally you don't have a freaking drum in the way. But since these Willwoods have an internal parking drum, it is damn near impossible to get to that little nut on the T-bolts to get the axle in and out. I'm still contemplating whether or not I want to order new axles that have the hole cut, or if I just want to pull this drum. You got to pull these little retainer springs so you can flex this forward, this drum shoe forward, so you can get a wrench behind it. And then once you get the axle tightened down, then you have to push the shoe back in place and fight this spring to get it on. It was a bitch. So I talked to some of my machinist friends. I was told you can drill this hole. It won't weaken it, the flange, even though it's already got these 2 holes drilled. If I center this out and make a hole in the middle of this to access those nuts, it won't weaken this too much, and it won't throw it out of balance, from what I was told by a couple of different rear end / axle shops. Now, the downside is, if anyone's ever tried to drill anything like this, one, this is hardened steel, I believe, and it's pretty thick. Two, it's not going to want to drill too well since it's already got holes. So I don't have a mill. I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know if I can just take my burr tool and just burr this out, or if my burr tool will even touch this stuff. It might be hardened to the point of where it's not going to want to touch it. The burr tool might just sit there and do nothing and want to burn up. Don't know. But anyways, the next step is to get these out. Like I said, drain the fluid. It had some nasty, thick, chunky stuff in it. There were some metal flakes in it. This was all reused. The gear was old. It did have new bearings put in it, but I'm not sure why I would have metal coming off in there unless it's just stuff from when I ground out or welded and cut the housing that didn't clean out all the way. I don't know, but it did have some metal flakes in there. Well, I guess when I pull it out, we'll see how bad the bearings look. See if maybe I screwed up something with the install. Who knows? It was my first time doing one of these third members, so we'll see how that looks when I pull it. It did look like it had moisture in it, which it has a vent in the top of it, but I don't think I've gotten this thing hot enough to allow the vent to actually get any moisture out of it, because I haven't driven the car any kind of long trip or long enough to heat the oil up inside of it enough, I don't think. But one thing I did notice on the other side is, well, actually I noticed on the inside of this drum there was some oil. This axle seal doesn't appear to be sealing. You probably can't see in there. Let's see. There it is. See that little bit of run there? Yeah. So I don't know if the axle seal isn't sealing right on this side, or if the flange that I welded, maybe it warped out of shape a little bit so it's not sealing. Don't know. I don't even know how I can check to see if it's out of round. Honestly, I don't know how I could do that. So what I might do is take my axle housing once I pull it to a drive shop and see if they can check it, and see if maybe they have some way to check the flange to see if it's out of round. But I would think if it was out of round, the bearing and I guess it'd be the bearing that seats in that flange wouldn't seat right. It wouldn't go in, and it wasn't like it was tight fit. It slid in smooth. And I had, if you remember, I used those, which are just billet aluminum guides, and that huge rod when I shortened it, so it had those in there to soak the heat along with keep it straight. So I don't know, but regardless, this side's leaking. I'll have to do something about it. Maybe it's just the axle seal, and I'll have to press those off and order new axle seals and press those back on, which I don't know if I can get these bearings off of this axle without damaging it, so it's another fun bit. Yeah, etc. But yeah, that's where it's at. I managed to get these off without having to pull the brake lines, because there wasn't anything bolting them down or anything they were going through towards the outer section. They only passed through anything solid up there, so they had enough to flex. I just pulled this flex line off here that goes up to the car. I have to figure out how I can drop this torque arm, hoping without pulling it, but it's got a drive shaft safety loop in the front, so I don't know if I can do anything with it without pulling it. I gotta look. And I gotta see how I can pull these adjuster rods that go up, because they have obviously the weight of the rear end and stuff on it. I tried to brace it to where right now it's just the weight of the axle hanging more or less. This side's touching on the jack stand, the other side's still floating a little bit. But there's a little bit of weight tension, so they're not just wanting to slip out. So I have to pull this panhard bar, I have to unbolt trailing arms, coilovers, and then the rear end will drop once I pull the drive shaft as well. The drive shaft's loose, the bolts for torque arm and the top adjusters are loose. Panhard bar, the nuts are off of it. So it's close to being able to pull it out. So I'll try to get a video next go round of the housing and the TrueTrac and etc. All the new parts, the shiny stuff. But I just wanted to touch base with what I'm working on. So it's going to be kind of a pain in the butt process doing this, between assembling the third member and getting it adjusted and lashed, and then fighting these axles, and then cutting and welding's not too bad. Figuring out that axle seal over there, that was something I didn't want to come across. So I'm hoping it doesn't end up being too much of a pain in the ass. Worst case, could always buy another one. I don't know if these came in a pair or not. I think they did. But they might be able to buy singles. I want to say they were singles. They were like $1.50 a piece or something. But yeah, that's it for now. I haven't done anything else with the door or the hood or any of that shit. So, still on the list of to-dos. Alright guys, thanks for watching.